So Congress had allowed compulsory unionism, the root cause of union violence, to remain virtually untouched. Without a ban on compulsion, union violence raged unabated. So in 1957, Senator John McClellan began 2 years of congressional hearings into the cause and extent of union violence. And a stunned Senate racketeering committee listened as victim after victim told tales of beatings, bombings, and murder. The evidence was overwhelming, over 50 volumes in all. And McClellan himself later concluded compulsory unionism and corruption go hand in hand. Many Americans now expected Congress to end once and for all big labor's special powers of compulsion. But that was not to be. Despite the massive evidence, the McClellan hearings produced little to check union violence. And today, the situation is worse than ever. Neil Martin is a man who knows how it feels to have had a rendezvous with death. Martin exercised his right to work during a militant trucker strike. As a result, he was brutally beaten by union toughs and left permanently disabled with psychomotor epilepsy.
One of them come around, had a picket sign in his hands, and at that time he tried to knee me in the groin area. He kneed me once, and I got rid of my hand truck, and he kneed me again. And at that time, he looked like he was going to hit me with the picket sign. So I decided that, I better do something. So I backed up to get a little room. And when I did, I bumped into a guy on this side of me, on the right. And immediately I knew I'd been set up. I turned to the left, and when I did, there was a guy coming around with a stick from a picket sign like this. And he hit me in the head. At that time, I went down to the ground on my knees. I didn't go unconscious, but I went down. As soon as I hit the ground on my knees, the guy in front of me with the picket sign kicked me in the stomach. And I went over face first into the asphalt, busted my nose, started bleeding. And then they started kicking me in the side of the head and kicking me in the ribs and in the ear and neck. My doctor has described what I have as psychomotor epilepsy. Go into an epileptic seizure, bite my tongue, bite my gum, my mouth, inside of my mouth. I pass out on the floor, kick. I'm out for about 15 seconds, 30 seconds, but I'm out for about 2 hours afterwards, which I usually sleep. As for the guys that did it, they got off scot-free. Why not? Because the union paid for it. The union got lawyers, the union bought everything. That's pitiful. You smash a guy's head, you kick him in the face, you bust him all up, and the union says, well, because we got money, yeah? That's the way it is. So they let him go. As for me, here I am now, 5 years later. I can't get a job in this town because of the union activities. I don't have a driver's license. I can't drive around. I have all kinds of problems. I have to take all kinds of medications. What can I do? I can't get a job. I can't do anything. I'm screwed for life.
Terry Delochet and Karen Cerritas learned firsthand about the evils of compulsory unionism. When they went through the union boss to find waitressing work, he had other jobs in mind. And when they repelled his advances, he turned to threats of violence.
He says, well, that's all you have to do is to waitress topless and you make $500. He says, if you want to make more money, you can make more money by doing more. And I said, no, I don't think I could do that. And he had some friend over in San Francisco who wanted to take pictures of women in lingerie. He had a woman in Hawaii who needed a live-in roommate. She happened to be lesbian, but she could get me a good job over there as a waitress. There was a dog act in Las Vegas.
For the entire luncheon ran down to me prostitution jobs, everything from having sex with politicians and underworld characters to having sex with dogs and lesbians.
I couldn't do anything about his remarks. I couldn't do anything about having to pay union dues to a union that would do nothing to help me at all. There was nothing I could do about it. This is the way life is. There's nothing you can do about it. You just get through, get by. Don't make enemies out of this guy, because he can kill you.
Mr. Lane sent someone out to talk to me about quieting down a little bit. Lane, this gentleman came out and said if I didn't stop my protest, I would lose my job. He said I would be blackballed in all the restaurants of Oakland, and I didn't do anything. I kept protesting. He came out again and said I I would have my brakes slashed. He said I would be beaten up, and I still didn't do anything. I didn't stop. And I didn't retract the letter to the International that they wanted retracted. Then he came out again and said that if I didn't stop, I would be raped. And after that, he said I would be killed.
The kinds of union abuses that Terry and Karen had to endure were possible for only one reason.
Or union jobs. The law requires that you go through the union to get a job.
One of the union stewards shouted to, "Shut up and sit down or I'll ram this beer bottle down your throat."
Before joining the Ralston, Nebraska police force, Dale Richardson was a loyal union member and a factory shop steward. But when he questioned the union's lavish spending, Richardson learned how dangerous it can be to cross a union boss.
The local president of the union had told several other members to do anything they wanted short of murder, and the union would protect them. My wife was called during the night hours frequently and threatened. Our tires were slashed on my car. Numerous phone calls just as a harassment during the middle of the night, all night long, particularly on weekends. This went on for about 9 months. After some time, I got harassment daily at my workbench. I had nuts and bolts thrown at me. All in all, it was a pretty terrifying period of time in my life.
I was frightened most of the time because I could see that Dale was upset. He didn't talk about it, but he'd come home and he'd sit and watch out the windows for people, and I'd ask him how it was going at work, and he'd get real short with me and say, don't ask. You don't want to know. I planned this one birthday party for him. I was going to surprise him. And he'd come home very upset, and somebody had told him to enjoy it because it would be the last one he ever had.
Ramona Drobina and 4 female friends decided to return to work rather than support a strike they felt was immoral. The primary issue was rehiring a local union official fired for beating up on the company vice president. When Ramona and her friends crossed the picket line, they learned that the union boss's wrath knew no bounds.
A few weeks later, one of the women that had crossed the picket line called me and told me that her home had been shot up. That altogether about 7 shots had been fired into the house, and 3 of them went through her baby's bedroom window. And I went out there and saw what they'd done. It ripped the baby's bed to shreds. It broke a big mirror, that was close to the bed, and another slug had gone all the way through into the den. And I couldn't believe it. I thought, if they will go so far as to fire shots into someone's home knowing that they could kill someone, what else could they do? After the shots had been fired into the home and they had told me that they would get me, I'd have to go out alone sometime. Being pregnant, I was so afraid that I was going to lose my baby. I didn't have any peace. I was upset constantly. I just knew I was going to lose her. I just couldn't take anymore. It just one thing after another. I couldn't sleep at night, and I woke up with nightmares. And the thought of losing my baby was just, it was too much.
I knew that they were trying to more or less kill me, the way I felt, because, there just wasn't no letting up.
Sammy Kirkland, the father of 2 sons and a young daughter, was brutally beaten by union thugs for working without a union card. Though now back at work, Kirkland lives with the constant knowledge that he may still face corrective surgery that could leave him crippled for life.
About 11 o'clock, when I was working, 11:30, about 100 men come through the gate, and they approached me and run up at the machine. I jumped off the machine, and when I did, they grabbed me and started beating on me and everything. They hit me with a ball-peen hammer and a crescent wrench in the head and throwed metal shavings in my eyes and threatening to cut my hands off. And just kicked me and beat me all over my body and my head and busted, ruptured the eardrum and broke 3 ribs. One of them, they said, almost got a lung, you know, just nipped the lung, and my kidney swelled up. I was out of work from the beating for 1.5 years before I could even get around.
When I first saw him, I cried. He looked just beaten down. Yeah, I knew he was scared. And I knew he was hurting. He was in quite a bit of pain. I had always heard the Union was supposed to be so good. Well, what good is it if it's going to hurt people and their families?
We wish we could tell you that what happened to these people were isolated incidents, that they were mere exceptions to the rule. But the rule of compulsory unionism violence knows no exceptions. It's as pervasive as it is perverse, as widespread as it is deep-seated. New York City, February 21st, 1979. Bands of striking school bus drivers attack private taxis. The union bus drivers wield baseball bats and ice picks. The cabs carry physically handicapped children to special schools across the city. Memphis, Tennessee, July 1st, 1978. While Memphis burns, striking union firefighters walk off their jobs. Mass tickets block fire station driveways. Tires are slashed on fire department vehicles. In just 3 days, over 300 fires caused $3 million worth of damage. And the Memphis police chief says he believes union firefighters set 90 to 95% of the blazes. Oakland, Alabama, February 4th, 1978. State police come to the rescue of 7 non-union miners besieged by over 200 United Mine Workers Union militants. For 12 hours, the union mob attacks the embattled offenders with guns, clubs, chains, and dynamite. Monticello, Georgia, May 1980. Carol Ellis Fuller sleeps in the bedroom of her mobile home. Carol is a non-striking secretary at a local plywood plant. Suddenly, 5 rifle shots shatter the night air, and one lodges in the head near the left eye of the sleeping bride. Brooklyn, New York, April 1980. 1,000 striking union militants stormed the Hayim Solomon Home for the Aged. The union mob rains bricks and bottles on the nursing home's defenders. As they batter down the door, the terrified aged patients cower in their closets and hide under their beds. The stories of union violence are as numerous as they are numbing. Wilkes-Barre, Pennsylvania, October 1978. A mob of union toughs attack a group of workers at the Wilkes-Barre Publishing Company. When a police officer tries to intervene, the mob savagely kicks and beats him to the ground. Dallas, Texas, October 1980. A sniper takes deadly aim at a crowded Dallas bus. Seconds later, a .30 caliber bullet shatters a passenger window and pierces the skull of 8-year-old Alicia Williams. While Alicia lingers in critical condition, police apprehend and indict a striking transit union militant. And perhaps most tragic of all, Chicago, Illinois, the winter of 1980. For 23 days, firemen staged an illegal strike. They want increased forced unionism powers, so they literally let the city burn. 20 innocent people die while striking firemen turn their backs or block the paths of those trying to douse the flames. Writes Mary Elson of the Chicago Tribune, 12 of the 20 were children, most too tiny to run from the flames that killed them, all too young to understand words such as strike and union and arbitration. It's terribly frustrating to hear of the bloody swath that union violence is cutting across the land today. Jobs are destroyed, homes are wrecked, lives are lost. And all because Congress has granted a handful of union bosses powers of compulsion.